What if I told you that one of these stories actually happened? College campuses are places of learning, growth, and new beginnings. But beneath the academic facades and manicured lawns, some universities harbor darker histories. Stories passed down through generations of students, whispered in dorm rooms late at night, debated on campus forums. Some are urban legends, crafted to frighten freshmen. Others are all too real. What follows are two tales of campus horror. One is completely fictional, crafted to send chills down your spine. The other is based on documented events, with real names, dates, and locations that can be verified in newspaper archives and university records. Your challenge is to determine which is which. Watch carefully. Look for the subtle details that might reveal truth from fiction. And remember, sometimes the most unbelievable stories are the ones that really happened. I never wanted to work at the campus library. The graveyard shift from midnight to 6 a.m. was the only student job still available when I started my junior year, and I needed the money. The library stayed open 24/7 during finals week, but barely anyone came in during those hours. Just the occasional student frantically trying to finish a paper, usually gone by 2 a.m. The job itself was simple: reshelve returned books, help anyone who needed assistance, and monitor the study areas. The building was old, built in the 1890s, with towering marble columns and endless rows of wooden shelves that creaked when the heating system kicked on. The top floor was mostly archived materials, thick with dust and rarely visited even during regular hours. Everything was fine for the first few weeks. I'd bring my laptop, catch up on readings between my rounds, and enjoy the peaceful solitude. But then I started noticing things. Small things at first. Books I'd just reshelved appearing on different floors, chairs pulled out from tables when I knew I'd pushed them all in, the elevator running between floors when nobody else was in the building. I blamed it on my tired mind playing tricks on me. Working alone in an old building at night, it was natural to get a little paranoid. That's what I told myself until the night I saw the woman. She was standing at the end of an aisle on the 4th floor, partially hidden behind a shelf. I only caught a glimpse: long dark hair, pale face, wearing what looked like an old-fashioned dress. When I walked toward her, she was gone. I convinced myself it was just another student, though I hadn't heard the elevator or the heavy fire doors that separated each floor. The next night, I found a student ID card on the floor while making my rounds. The photo showed a young woman with long dark hair, wearing a high-necked blouse. The issue date was 1973. I looked up the name in the university's online archives later. Elizabeth Chun, reported missing during her senior year. They never found her. After that, things escalated. I'd hear footsteps following me on my rounds, always stopping when I turned around. Books would fly off shelves as I walked past. The elevator would open on the 4th floor every night at 3:33 a.m., even though I'd stopped using it entirely. The worst was the whispering. It started as unintelligible murmurs from the darkness between shelves, but gradually became clearer. Just one phrase, repeated over and over: "Help me find it." I requested camera footage from security, but they said the 4th floor cameras had been malfunctioning for weeks, showing only static between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. When I asked about previous incidents, the head of security got oddly quiet. He finally admitted that every few years, student workers on the night shift would quit suddenly, refusing to explain why. I considered quitting too, but something held me back. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I felt somehow responsible for helping her. So I started researching, spending my free time digging through old newspapers and yearbooks. Elizabeth had been a history major, working on her thesis about the university's early years. The night she disappeared, she'd told her roommate she was going to the library to check something in the archives. Last night, I finally found what she must have been looking for. Hidden in an old administrative file was a series of letters from 1892, describing a sealed room discovered during the library's construction. The workers had broken through a wall and found a small chamber containing artifacts of concerning nature. The university president ordered the room sealed up and its location obscured in the building plans. I'm writing this now from my usual desk on the 1st floor. It's 3:30 a.m. and I can hear the elevator moving. I know where she wants me to go. The original blueprints show a space behind the north wall of the archives that doesn't appear in any later plans. I think I know what I need to do. I just hope someone finds this if I don't make it back. And to whoever takes the night shift after me, if you hear whispering in the stacks or see a woman in an old-fashioned dress, don't ignore her. She's been waiting a very long time for someone to help her find what was hidden. And whatever you do, don't follow her to the 4th floor at 3:33 a.m. Not unless you're ready to learn why some rooms are meant to stay sealed. I transferred to Kenyon College in Ohio for my sophomore year, excited for a fresh start. The campus was beautiful, all Gothic architecture and sweeping lawns. I'd chosen it partly because of the strong creative writing program, not realizing that would mean spending a lot of late nights in the Chalmers library working on stories. The first strange thing I noticed was how empty the 3rd floor always was. Even during midterms, when every other floor was packed, you'd rarely see anyone up there. I liked the quiet though, so I made it my regular study spot. There was a corner desk by the window that felt perfect for writing. One night in October, I was working late on a short story assignment. Around midnight, the fluorescent lights started flickering. I didn't think much of it, old building, faulty wiring, but then I noticed the temperature had dropped dramatically. I could see my breath in the air. That's when I heard it, the sound of books being pulled off shelves and dropped onto the floor. It was coming from the American literature section, just out of sight from my desk. I assumed it was another student at first, but when I went to check, there was nobody there, just books scattered across the floor. As I bent to pick them up, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around and saw a young woman in 1940s style clothes walking between the shelves. She disappeared around a corner before I could say anything. I followed, but the aisle was empty. The next day, I asked one of the librarians about the history of the building. She got very quiet, then told me about Stuart Pearson. He was a freshman in 1905, pledging the Delta Kappa Epsilon fraternity. As part of his initiation, he was told to wait on the railroad tracks near campus late at night. The fraternity brothers were supposed to rescue him before any trains came through. They didn't make it in time. After his death, strange things started happening in the library, especially on the 3rd floor where Stuart used to study. Books would move on their own. Students reported seeing a woman in vintage clothing, believed to be Stuart's girlfriend Elizabeth, who died of grief shortly after his death. I didn't want to believe it, but over the next few weeks, I couldn't ignore the signs. The temperature drops, the flickering lights, the sound of crying late at night. Once, I found my notebook open to a page where someone had written in handwriting not my own. They left him there to die. The incidents got worse as Halloween approached. One night, I stayed late again, trying to finish a paper. Around midnight, I heard the distinct sound of train wheels on tracks, getting louder and louder, even though the nearest railroad was miles away. Then came a scream that made my blood run cold. I ran for the stairs, but they were blocked by the figure of a woman in a dark dress, her face streaked with tears. Behind her, I could see a young man in early 1900s clothing, his face bloody and twisted in agony. I backed away and ran for the elevator instead. I didn't go back to the 3rd floor after that. I switched to studying in my dorm room, only visiting the library during daylight hours. But sometimes, walking past the building late at night, I can still hear the phantom train whistle. And every year on October 28th, the anniversary of Stuart's death, they say you can see 2 figures standing in the 3rd floor window, waiting endlessly for a rescue that never came. The fraternity is still active at Kenyon today, though they've long since ended their dangerous initiation practices. Stuart Pearson's death is well documented in the university's archives and local newspapers from 1905. But what fewer people know is that every year, books about train accidents and fraternity hazing mysteriously appear on the 3rd floor, scattered across the floor like evidence that refuses to be filed away and forgotten. Some stories, it seems, won't stay shelved. So, which story holds the truth within its words? Was it the tale of Elizabeth Chun and the mysterious sealed room, or the haunting account of Stuart Pearson's tragic fraternity initiation? One of these stories can be researched, its core events confirmed through historical records. The other exists purely in the realm of imagination. The answer might surprise you. But before you search for it, ask yourself, in a world where truth is often stranger than fiction, what made you believe one story over the other? Sometimes the most terrifying part isn't knowing which story is real. It's realizing that events just as horrifying as these have actually taken place on college campuses across the country, their memories preserved in whispered legends and faded newspaper clippings, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to look. Which story do you think is true? Head over to the Posts tab to find out.